Today, we're going to break down one of the most famous assassinations in all of history. We're talking about an act of betrayal so deep, so personal, that it didn't just kill a man, it brought a 500-year-old republic crashing down with him.
Et tu, Brute? You too, my son? I mean, it's a legendary line for a reason, right? It just perfectly captures that shocking personal betrayal at the very heart of a political drama that, and this is no exaggeration, changed the world forever. Okay, let's get into it. So, to really get why Caesar had to die, you first have to understand the vibe in Rome back in 44 BC. The Roman Republic was, well, fundamentally allergic to the idea of kings. The whole system was built on shared power, and now it was teetering on the brink of being ruled by just one man. I mean, just look at this timeline. In 5 short years, Julius Caesar completely rewrote the rules. It all kicked off in 49 BC when he crossed the Rubicon River, basically the point of no return, and plunged the Republic into civil war. A year later, his great rival Pompey is out of the picture, and then, by February of 44 BC, he takes that final, terrifying step. He's declared dictator perpetuus. That's dictator for life. For a lot of senators, this wasn't just a power grab. It was a death sentence for the republic they knew. And then came this, what many people saw as just the ultimate act of arrogance. Caesar becomes the first living Roman to have his face stamped on a coin. Now, you have to understand, that honor was reserved for gods and long-dead ancestors. So for his enemies, this wasn't just him being full of himself. No, this was a clear signal that he saw himself as more than a man, something dangerously close to a king. So all this growing fear about a new king, well, it sparked a conspiracy. We're talking about 60 senators who started calling themselves the Liberators. They were convinced, absolutely convinced, they were saving the Republic. But here's the thing. This plot was fueled just as much by personal beefs and tangled relationships as it was by any kind of high-minded political ideals. Okay, let's meet the key players in this drama. First up, Marcus Brutus. This guy was Caesar's friend, his protege. Some people even whispered he was Caesar's illegitimate son. So he's torn, right? He's got this family legacy. One of his ancestors kicked out Rome's last king. But he also has this deep bond with Caesar. Then you've got Gaius Cassius. He's a former enemy that Caesar pardoned. And he's really the engine behind this whole thing. He's ambitious, and frankly, he's personally offended that Caesar promoted the younger Brutus over him. And finally, there's Decimus Brutus. This one has to sting. He was one of Caesar's most trusted generals, so close he was actually named in Caesar's will. His betrayal? It seems to come from pure jealousy. So let's be crystal clear here. This was not a band of political opponents. This was an inner circle of betrayal. The leader, Marcus Brutus, son of Caesar's longtime lover, the guy who got the whole thing started, Cassius, his brother-in-law. And Decimus, the trusted general, he was practically family, right there in the will. These were the men Caesar trusted most, and they were the ones sharpening their daggers. So the conspirators had their who. Now they just needed the when and the where. They chose a very specific date, the Ides of March, March 15th. This was the day of a big Senate meeting at the Theater of Pompey, which they saw as the perfect stage for their public act of so-called liberation. But here's where the story gets kind of spooky. It's like fate itself tried to step in. On the morning of the 15th, all the omens were terrible. And the most chilling part, Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, wakes up from this horrifying nightmare where she's holding his murdered body. She begged him, pleaded with him not to go to the Senate that day. And you know what? He almost listened. You think that's close? It gets closer. As Caesar is walking to the Senate, a teacher who knew about the whole plot manages to push a note into his hand. A note detailing everything, the names, the plan, all of it. But he's surrounded by people, there's chaos, and he just never gets a chance to read it. I mean, can you imagine? He was literally holding the key to his own survival in his hand, and he never even knew. So he gets to the Senate, he takes his seat, and then it happens. A senator grabs his toga and pulls it down from his shoulders. That was the signal. Another senator, Casca, lunges with the first dagger. Caesar actually fights back, but it's too late. The others just swarm him, a frenzy of daggers. And there, among them, delivering one of the final devastating blows, was Marcus Brutus. 23. That's how many times he was stabbed. He finally collapsed, bleeding to death at the foot of a statue. And the irony is just staggering. It was the statue of his greatest rival, Pompey the Great, the man he had defeated in civil war. The liberators really thought they were going to be hailed as heroes. They pictured the Roman people cheering, celebrating the death of a tyrant and the return of the Republic. Yeah, they could not have been more wrong. Their plan was about to backfire spectacularly. Instead of cheers, what they got was stunned silence. And that silence quickly turned into absolute public fury. See, what these aristocratic senators completely failed to grasp was that Julius Caesar was incredibly popular with regular people. He'd passed reforms that helped them with their debts, with their taxes. So to the average Roman, this wasn't liberation. This was a bunch of rich guys taking out a man of the people. So the assassination didn't restore the Republic, it shattered it. It created this huge power vacuum. And into that void stepped two new players. First, Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal and very charismatic right-hand man. And then a complete surprise, Octavian, Caesar's 18-year-old grandnephew, who, it turns out, Caesar had adopted as his son and heir in his will. The liberators, they're now public enemies on the run. And the Senate, totally powerless. From there, things just completely imploded. At Caesar's funeral, Mark Antony gives this masterful speech that whips the Roman mob into a frenzy, hunting down the assassins. Brutus and Cassius have to flee Italy and raise an army. Meanwhile, Antony and the kid Octavian, they form an alliance and start a bloody purge of all their enemies in Rome. So the very thing the conspirators did to prevent a civil war, it ended up starting a new one, an even more brutal one that would last another 13 years. And this is where we get to the great, tragic irony of this whole story. The act that was designed to save the Republic was actually the final nail in its coffin. It paved the way for something far, far more absolute. And the end came pretty quickly after that. By 42 BC, Brutus and Cassius are defeated and take their own lives. Then the alliance between Antony and Octavian falls apart, leading to one last big showdown. In 31 BC, Octavian defeats Mark Antony and his lover, Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. They, too, commit suicide. And just like that, there was only one man left standing as the undisputed master of the Roman world. And right here, this is the ultimate irony of it all. Let's put it side by side. Julius Caesar was called dictator for life, and he was killed for it. His heir, Octavian, was much smarter. He avoided those scary titles, called himself first citizen. And yet, he ruled as Rome's first emperor, an absolute monarch, for more than 40 years. The men who killed Caesar to stop a king created an emperor who had way more power than Caesar ever dreamed of. And really, if you take one thing away from this whole story, it should be this. The assassination was a catastrophic miscalculation. In their violent, desperate attempt to save their 500-year-old republic, the assassins actually became the architects of its destruction. They just hit the fast-forward button on the very future they were trying to prevent. Which leaves us with the one big question that historians still debate to this day. Did the assassins kill a tyrant to save a republic? Or, in their act of betrayal, did they just murder the republic itself? It's a question that really makes you think about that thin, bloody line that sometimes separates liberation from total destruction.